Meeting started. It's now 7 o'clock. Robert made it in. He's rushing to get here this evening. But we will go ahead and call the meeting to order. With that, we do have a quorum. We've got our 3 members here, 3 out of 5, so we do have a quorum. Do we have previous meeting minutes to review?
Boy, I didn't print them out, sir. No.
All right, so we will pass on that. We'll review those at a later date. Come back to that. Actually, we need to adopt the meeting agenda first, and we sent out a tentative agenda after chatting with Chris. We're going to move him up from number 9 to number 4 in the agenda. So we're going to make a slight modification to get Chris a little earlier in the agenda this evening to touch on some points he wants to make. Other than that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Second? Aye. All ayes. Approved. So with that, we talked about the previous meeting minutes. We'll get those circulated via email and approve via email at a later date. With that, Commissioner, we come to you.
So thank you. I made a mistake of sitting next to Mary, so now I have to actually move to where it's a place where I can go on there. I know based on some of the phone calls, text, emails, Facebook comments and everything, it's probably a better time to speak before the public comments rather than being later in the meeting, so that we can kind of address everybody that saw the agenda for our upcoming Board of Commissioners meeting tomorrow has had quite a bit of curiosity of what's going on. If you haven't, one of the items on our agenda tomorrow is to work with our state delegation in the dissolving of the authority to move the function and the maintenance and operation of the airport back under the span of the Board of Commissioners, so it would continue to function. Now, in that same process, there will be, under local ordinance, a creation of a new board, just not under the same context of the authority. Reasons behind this being are not negative. I know that it's hard to do something like that and it not come across and appear as negative, but there's a significant amount of funding at this point in time that's being required for the operation, the continued operation of the airport, that is coming from general funds, which the Board of Commissioners is responsible for, and we're actually we're accountable to the taxpayers for. So as a result, to get the ability to kind of have more say in the decisions, because the way it's currently written, the authority goes to the authority. And it's a group of volunteers that have given countless hours to their time, and this is 100% an opportunity to say thank you for doing that and then for continuing to do it, because this isn't a fast process. This is something that we will actually vote on as a Board of Commissioners tomorrow. The other 2 commissioners may come in and say they have different ideas, but it is an agenda item that's to be voted on. They've had a copy of the resolution to review. That will then go to our state representative, who will take it to the Capitol. It goes through the House, the Senate, all the way to the point of a governor's signature, because it's any change to a local act of legislation requires that process. During that time, we'll finalize the establishment of a board, whether it be an advisory board or a commission, try to come up with the terms. We've been reaching out to several other counties throughout the state that have something similar, just to get the language of how they've got that established and if there's anything that shifts. An opportunity will be given to our existing authority members to serve as key members of that. It'll also be additional spots that will be opened up. I know quite a few in this room have actually submitted your information for consideration for an appointment to the authority. We knew we were in the process of preparing this, so we've not filled those 2 vacant seats yet, because we didn't want to put somebody on the authority and then immediately turn around and work with the state to dissolve the authority. So we're trying to work through that process so that we can continue to work with any contracts that are in place, whether it be on construction, any of the other items, working with DOT, FAA, and to give it the ability where full-time staff can be delegated to working directly in that process and try to get us on the path forward. Once we get to a point where we're fully self-sustaining airport, then we can come back and revisit the re-implementation of an authority, or if it's working really well as a department, we can continue that as a department. But our commitment as the Board of Commissioners will be to provide service, to be a service-oriented department, to where we're going to do the best we can to try to make sure it's reflective and remains reflective of our community, and that there be some of the highest services there. I don't think that you're going to see a tremendous amount of just immediately trying to make changes. We're going to try to be responsive. I know that we had originally talked as we were preparing for this to host a town hall, airport-specific town hall. As we get ready to roll, we'll come up with plans on how to get that going once that's been received back from the governor's office. And so we'll do the best we can to do that, and to continue to work really closely with the new board as it's created and established by ordinance to do that. I say that this meeting's being held the day before the Board of Commissioners meeting. This is an item that's being presented before the board. It has not been voted on yet. Tomorrow at 5:30 will be when we have our meeting, and that'll be the time where the Board of Commissioners will have the opportunity to actually vote on that particular item. So wanted to make sure to provide that. I want to make sure to add clarity that how thankful we are. The amount of time as a volunteer, I mean, these guys get paid nothing, and have continually stayed involved and have stood up here and took some hits and took some negative comments, and well, actually, Mark's asked for an increase in his pay 2 or 3 times. I've doubled it and then I've tripled it, but
I
it's
just
still
want my
zero.
property taxes to go down.
So I wanted to do that. I'm going to have a seat. I know that when it comes to public comments, there may be some that you want to address toward me, and if so, I'll hop back up. But I just wanted to give an explanation from the standpoint of what that item on the agenda actually means. So that way it clears up any miscommunication on that. So.
Thanks, Chris, and I will say that, I've been talking about this for months now, and from my side and from conversations with the other members, we fully support the change. There's activity going on right now in the development of the new terminal building and a lot of projects there that need more direct oversight than a volunteer board can feasibly get. There's just way too many hours required to be able to get that. So quite thankful actually that the change is coming. So hopefully the other commissioners join you in this change, and we get a yay vote tomorrow night. So thank you. All right, so we've got Chris taken care of, so it's now time for public input. And so we'll open the floor up and take that public input. Remember that we have a 3-minute limit for the public input. We'll time these things, and no offense, but we've got a lot of people in the room, and we all want to go home at some point tonight as well.
I think
So we're going to keep it to 3 minutes.
The Henry Street added to the agenda.
That'll go into new business, or it
Okay.
can come in here at on this public input, either one.
Got it, sir.
Either one on that. So with that, the floor is open for public comments. Anybody want to raise your hand, and we'll call on those that wish to speak? No public comment? I'm surprised. What?
Jeez, no one's gonna say nothing. My public comment is basically about the through the fence operation, which has kind of come and gone in and out of the news a few times. I'm gonna make it short and sweet. My first meeting with Lloyd Thompson began as a routine hangar lease signing, but it quickly turned into a much darker discussion about a county agenda of despicable cowardice. Little towns are full of big rumors. I mean, how could any plan that betrayed a handshake securing Lloyd's agreement with the county for 5 decades be real? In the years that have passed since, the county attorney, 3 airport managers, 2 Chamber of Commerce members, 1 Economic Development Board chair, and many other well-connected Pickens County residents and pilots have confirmed that this rumored plan was common knowledge. The plan was for the county to take over Lloyd's 2 acres of land and his 15 hangars at the northeast corner of the airport just as soon as he died. He knew what and he knew when, but he didn't know exactly how that was to happen. He devoted his final years protecting his life's work and his family's inheritance. It now seems that those efforts were well warranted, as his through-the-fence facility is under siege by our airport authority. Chairman Ed Wood has demonstrated his commitment to turning this decades-old rumor into a reality. Combining his power with delusional interpretations of FAA regulations, he has authored a handful of proposals for Lloyd's heirs. His latest offer, a copy of which was forwarded to the Pickens Progress, demands Lloyd's family spend millions on airport infrastructure improvements and then pay the county rent on the property that they have owned and worked for half a century. This is his alternative to fencing them off from the airport access altogether, which would render their family business worthless. He has separately advised me that the family should simply give their property and business to the county. All of these options are blatantly onerous. All of them functionally deprive Lloyd's heirs and of their property rights. And while they differ in their details, all more than fulfill the prophecy of property takeover that was so widely acknowledged as fact for years. To be fair, this whole sickening scenario existed long before Chris Danson became the county commissioner. He has stated separately that the county has absolutely zero interest in acquiring Lloyd's property, and there is, quote, no chance that the county would take on more debt to expand the airport there. That said, that property is on the airport authority's land acquisition plan, and none of Ed Wood's proposals involve county debt. Now, has Ed simply gone rogue and abused his power to strong-arm a dead man's family into forfeiting their lawful inheritance? And more importantly, how long can those actions continue to be ignored by the elected officials who appointed him? While his years of feckless leadership...
Gary, that's your 3 minutes. Thank you. We appreciate your opinion. Timer says so. Anybody else? Any other comments?
Can we get an update on the AWAS?
That'll come later in the engineering and the airport manager's comments. So we'll absolutely get an update on that. All right, if there's no other public input, we will go to committee and airport authority member reports. Don't know that we have any outstanding reports right now.
I'm sorry, Ed, I didn't interrupt you, but I would like to hear an answer to what is the status of the fence?
We'll get to that as well. It's in the
Okay,
project
that's all.
status.
Okay, good.
So we'll get to that in a minute.
All right.
There will be an update on that. There's, we had a couple of emails moving on that one earlier in the last 2 weeks. So. Committee and airport authority members, guys, do you have anything you need to report, any projects that we've been working on? I know we've got several construction projects that are going on, but with that, I don't know that there's any committee reports going there today. Treasurer's report, I'll ask Stacy to address the treasurer's report. These were circulated to you guys a couple of days ago, last week I think. I will say that the February report is preliminary. When you look at it and start looking at the numbers in it, it's not gonna make a lot of sense because some accruals and things haven't been put in there. But we do have the year end as well as the February budget. So if you'll walk us through that.
The year-end budget is actually undocumented at this time as far as audit purposes go. We've still got a lot of transactions that have to be approved. The encumbrances have to be taken care of and eliminated or processed. So there's several things that still haven't been done for the 2024 report. We've got till the end of this month to make accruals and adjustments, and then we're gonna have the semi-audit that'll be turned in probably sometime in March when they come out and do a process with us for like a week or so at a time. And then the actual final report will not be ready until June, which is standard. So there will be numbers that will be fluctuating on this report that I sent out to you guys. We do have several expenses that hit that were not planned. A GFA loan had to be paid back, and that wasn't in the actual budget for us.
And that GFA loan was for the sewer lift station, correct?
Correct, yes. I mean, we knew that it was gonna have to be done, it just wasn't put in for the 2024 budget when it was originally proposed. So we knew that that hit was coming, and then we also couldn't help but have to get a new building, so we've had to incur that debt as well. Which turns out to be a liability, I mean, a asset for us, so that's a good thing. But
But
those,
that building is not going to be long-term an airport asset, is my understanding.
that is correct,
It's gonna be a county asset that was used during
correct,
the interim, and it was a facility, a function that the county needed otherwise. So it
Right.
was bought to accommodate us, and then a longer-term plan of that is for county use at other locations.
that is
Is
correct.
that correct, Chris?
Correct. And it should, as they do the adjustments, working with the auditors, move that from a contingency to offset the expense, but it had to categorize within whatever department it was initially going to.
Sure.
So while they're working through that transition, it's showing as an expense, but then they're gonna bring back over the revenue side to offset it within the airport budget.
As far as the February report goes, we should be averaging 1.93% per week, and we get those reports weekly, so if you guys want them any sooner or more often.
Monthly's fine, unless there's something we need
Okay.
to see, please.
Okay, so you'll see that the expenses and the revenue both are lower than that percentage. We're just getting slow out of the chute, but it should be okay.
Anything that
once
you
we
wanna draw our
get going.
attention to, anything that's out of line that we need to take a look at, anything that we've just budgeted, any areas of concern?
As far as the 2024 budget,
Actually, I'm thinking that one's closed, there's not much we can do to adjust on it. Anything that we need to look at for the 2025, anything you see at this point that we need to take a look at, so we don't have a problem at the end of the year.
not as of right now. I know there will be things that's coming up, but it's probably gonna be after we get the 2024 audited report
Okay.
finished. But there will be some things, yes.
Yeah, I'm just looking like repairs and maintenance, we're at 88% of the budget used already. So there's some of those things in there that seem a bit high in our expenditures based on total budget for the year.
If you'll look at those particular categories and you've got specific questions, I can go ahead and give you some answers on them. At the first of the year, what we tried to do is if we knew there was gonna be an ongoing expense monthly, we went ahead and incurred those fees by letting them show as encumbered fees.
Okay,
So we know like,
Weed killer.
Yeah, like-
all that stuff.
our lawn care, we know there's gonna be a monthly budget for
actually,
that.
lawn care I'm looking at.
Yes.
Correct.
And we just went ahead and issued the purchase order for the entire year.
Okay.
So it's gonna show that we're a little bit top heavy right now, but as the year goes on, it should start evening out on those particular ones.
Okay,
We just wanted to encumber everything so we'll know what kind of expenses and what we do have left available in those categories.
got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any questions, guys? Any questions for
No,
Stacy
sir.
on
No,
the
no, sir.
budget? All right, so we move on to the next item agenda, which is the airport manager's report.
Hi. So this is the biggest crowd I've had since I've been the airport manager for a couple years, so I'm a little bit nervous, so just hang in there with me. Just some updates to start with. The old FBO was taken down, and we want to give a huge thank you to road department for helping us take it down, re-gravel it, and just make it look great. We couldn't have done it without them, and Randy with maintenance. They have just been so much help, getting the trailer set up, getting the bathroom set up and everything. So we are good to go in our trailer. We do acknowledge the disappointment expressed by the community members regarding the loss of the front porch at our previous FBO. But just know that we are actively working on that solution. We're obtaining quotes to get a porch, a temporary porch for our temporary trailer, so we can have some rocking chairs and some community involvement while we're in our temporary trailer. And then, of course, with our new FBO, we have a porch there as well. So
It's not a porch, this one was a raised porch, wooden porch. It is a patio area in the front of the building, covered with area for rocking chairs to be put out there. So we've kept that rocking chair front porch. It's gonna be different with a new building, so, but it's still there. It's similar.
And I know the trailer is small, but we are currently in the process of establishing sort of a temporary facility within the airport trailer to accommodate airport users. Our aim is to replicate the amenities previously offered in the FBO, such as like the snack bar and the drinks. And we want to have a place for like flight planning. It won't be extraordinary, but we're gonna do what we can to make what we have work for the users of the airport for however long it takes. We do appreciate your patience as we navigate through these challenges. We understand that the current situation may be time consuming and potentially frustrating, but we are working diligently to create an environment that will benefit both our pilots and our local community. For those of you who get my newsletter, you read that we are adding an additional 5 tie downs to the newer ramp area. that is still taking place. We have all the equipment to move forward with that. We just have to wait until the weather works with us, to, do the paint and.
Are those gonna be temporary or long-term tighter?
So we are going to put we have the anchors to put in, but as you come in right now, our long-term tie downs are on the left-hand side if you're coming off the runway. The idea is to put our temporary tie down or our transit tie downs on the right-hand side on the new apron for two different reasons. One, so there's no contracts in case, traffic picks up and we gotta move it for whatever reason. And two, so that there's a distinguished difference between transit and people who pay monthly, because there has been issues with transit aircraft parking in our tenants' space. And they get home, they don't wanna see that, they just wanna park their aircraft. So the idea is to have all the transit on the right-hand side coming from the runway and all of our tenants on the left-hand side, and have a little sign out there, it's like transit this way, to kind of decipher that.
Makes sense.
We're starting back up the food truck fly-in Fridays. We have one on February 28th at noon. It's gonna be a taco truck. There's a lot of taco trucks here, so we're gonna have a lot of taco trucks, but, so there's that. On the finance side, for hangar rent, we do finally have our online portal to pay. You can pay online via our website. There's a link on our website to pay if you want to pay with credit card. There is fees. There's credit card fees if you want to pay with credit card. Payment options currently for hangar rent are you can pay in person, you can call, you can mail in, you can do an ACH transfer or online payments. You can use check, cash, or major credit cards. Rent is due no later than the 10th of each month. And if you were previously on reoccurring credit cards, like we did it for you, we ask that you go to the website and do it yourself.
That includes me.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Saw that look.
Absolutely.
But you can also send a check too, because those credit card fees are pretty high.
Have we lost or had people bumped off the recurring payment system because of the new portal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well, what happened was, so we would keep under lock and key their credit card numbers, and we would do it manually ourselves.
Understand. Okay.
Well, now that we have the online, we ask that, people pay their bills.
Can that be set up as a recurring charge on there, or is it, you have to do it every month?
If you do the ACH form, I can go in and pull it each month. And you won't have to do anything but sign that form, fill it out, send it back to you.
And you don't pay fees with ACH, right?
Can it auto bill a credit card?
That was my
fees?
question.
We can look into it. I know the water department has an option to auto bill,
Yeah.
because I'm with the county
We
water
haven't got that,
department.
we haven't got that far yet, but we're working on it.
Okay.
Slow steps.
Yeah.
Tyler is a little
We
bit.
were just tickled to death to finally get the options.
Totally get it. Thank you for the progress.
Yes, sir.
Equipment. The beacon photo cell light, it was broken. We got it repaired. So now it should be functioning correctly. Just please let me know if there's any issues. Not only with that, with anything, because I can get it fixed. We are aware of the ongoing issue with our wind readings on our AWAS. Efforts to resolve this problem are underway, and an update will be provided during the engineering report. We're looking at a couple different options to move forward with that.
Bill, are you gonna cover that? Then you wanna do that then, not now?
It kind of ties into the terminal.
Okay,
Kind of,
let's do
so we'll
it.
just kind of do that all at once.
Did you want me to cover the DD?
No.
Okay.
That's all a part of it. So.
Lighting is up and great. The pilots can tell you we've received great feedback on the LED lights. We're still waiting on the FAA to complete that test flight to turn on our PAPIs. So, of course,
I give you I walked over there and talked to him, thought I could appeal to him. It has to go through all their steps with Atlanta to get released to the pilot. It's a frustrating.
It's a very slow process.
Yes, I thought I could.
And if they come out and it's not correct, then they have to come back and refly it, and there's a wait period for that as well.
Correct.
and they only tell you when they're on final, so it makes it really fun. The fuel tanks are scheduled for their annual inspection and filter replacement in April. While Perry Brothers is doing that inspection and the filter replacement. They're going to install a grounding cable on the bar that we have out there for the 100 low lead to enhance the cable maintenance and longevity. Everybody who's at our airport knows that that cable just kind of gets, ratty. So we want to have it sort of real. Fuel sales performance has been really strong. We've had a 15.2% increase from 2023 to 2024. And in January, we actually surpassed all the fuel sales in the past 3 years. So there's that.
For January's or?
Yeah, just for January.
Okay.
Just for January.
But still, yeah.
And the last thing I want to address,
Before you go off the fuel, does the increase come from 100 low lead? Does it come from
just from
jet?
yeah.
Where's that split coming? Are we seeing more jet traffic in and out now? I know we have a couple of Cirrus jets there. So curious how that split's coming.
I could break it down. It's in the packet that I gave you guys.
Yeah.
It's broken down by fuel type. Of course, now I can't find it, and I'm shaking so bad I really
That's
can't
all right.
find it.
It's almost 50-50 for last year between 100 and Jet A.
The jets do help. There's no denying that. We have 2 Cirrus jets, and they want full service fuel every time. Like, they don't even want to use self-service, and we probably fuel them up at least once a week. But our 100 low lead, we also have great prices on that working through Perry Brothers. I think we have the lowest in North Georgia other than Calhoun, who's a cent cheaper, or maybe we're a cent cheaper. But a lot of people do come to our airport for that fuel. So finally, I'll probably get a lot of kickback for this. Please don't go off on me. But I want to address subletting. We currently have 46 individuals on our hangar wait list and 11 on our tie-down wait list. There's been absolutely no movement on our wait list since March of 2024. To address this issue, I propose implementing a plan to phase out subletting by 2026. I recognize the need to consider various circumstances in this process, and I welcome all input. I would say roughly we have at a minimum 10 hangars that are subletted.
Yeah.
If not more.
Yeah.
We're just, So I would like any feedback from pilots and, people of the community, but I would just prefer, we as a team would prefer that we saw some movement on our wait list.
I think you'd have 100% support for changing that from everybody on the wait list. And I think we'd have 100% against it from anybody who's subletting a hangar today. So, you've got both sides of that to contend with. So, we'll take it under advisement, and it'll be something that we'll discuss and look at going forward. But
Has it come up in the past, Ed? We've ever addressed it, has the board ever addressed it, the community ever addressed it?
we have had, for the entire time that I have been on the board, we've always had an allowed subletting. And we've tried to tighten that up such that it was where you could just basically sublet your hangar to somebody else. They went over and started paying payments. We even had a few people try to change names on those leases. Well, I've been in there for 2 years. I should be able to get my name on the lease. And we have stood fast that we don't allow that. And so we don't want a sublet to be converted to a long-term lease. It needs to be turned back to the county airport authority and released to the next person on the list. So we've kept that integrity. We have not really discussed eliminating the sublet.
Okay.
I would like to come up with a plan, like call around to different airports, see what they're doing, come up with a plan. Like, I get that there are different circumstances. Pilots, they sell their airplane, it takes them a year to get a new airplane.
Or 3 years,
Somebody,
depending on what you buy.
an engine, they gotta get a new engine, and it takes, Jack and I probably took you a year and a half to get a new engine. So I get that there are exceptions that we need to make, but I think that there are some changes in the subletting process that we also need to sort of enforce, whether it be you sign a lease and you can only sublet for a year, whatever the case is. I would just like to submit that plan to you guys, and obviously it doesn't happen overnight. It's gonna take at least a year to let those people who, gosh forbid, are subletting find a plan.
Know that for every person you make happy, you're making the same number.
Oh, I
unhappy.
know.
So-
Tomorrow, I'm gonna have all the comments. People love, I'm gonna have all the comments on Facebook, like, oh my
Oh,
gosh.
yeah.
So, I get it, but, I wanna do what's best for,
Understood.
and I accept all the feedback. If nobody wants it, then by all means.
I got a quick question for you.
Uh-oh.
Since you have folks on the waiting list for hangars, are there plans to build more hangars so that the county can get more rent payments?
Currently, right now, that's not in the CIP. We just put in those other 4 hangars. And we've gotta pay those off before we can, build some more. But I wouldn't say that it's not gonna happen, it's just not in our 5-year plan currently.
So I'll address that as well. Right now, we've got all of the appetite taken up for the county commissioners on the funds they're willing to put into this airport and the projects we're currently working on. If we go back and honestly look at the rents on the T hangars and the box hangars that are out there today, we're not receiving the funds we should to retire the debt in a profitable manner that we should. We should increase the rates to probably 30% higher than where they are, based on the cost of building those hangars. So if we go build additional hangars today, go back to the commissioners and ask for more money, they're gonna say, what'd you do with our money previously? Why are we not getting that paid off more quickly? Why are you coming back for more when you haven't made good use of what you have? So I can tell you that in conversations with Chris and with the other commissioners, there's not an appetite to invest in additional county leased T hangars out there today. There probably will be in the future, but there's no appetite for it today. Second challenge to that is, there really isn't anywhere to put T hangars. Unless we go and buy back all the hangars, I think they're the H hangars out there, we really don't have anywhere to put those hangars. So again, it's gonna come at a cost of something that's already there. The land that's out on the end of the west taxiway, on the south side's already spoken for. That that's on the north side, frankly, is not deep enough to put a lot of T hangars in there and have good density, where the project will cash flow well. So honestly, I don't see a big chance of having any additional T hangars put on the field at this point. Several problems that come in with that. I know the desire is there, and I'd love to see them there, because I guarantee you, if we built 100 hangars tomorrow, we'd have 100 additional aircraft on that field to fill it up. We just don't have the space for it. Jack?
I know that the taxiway where your hangar is located, was involved in a big thing going on. I also know that when the gentleman who tore down the house at the end of 3-4, he was given rights to the airport from that house.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't?
He was not.
I was told he was putting a hangar in and was gonna base a citation there, and I was at the meeting.
That was talked about, and there was gonna be a reciprocal land grant from him to the county. That never materialized, so he has no lease on that.
So what is the chances of the county buying some of the land behind the box hangars that are currently there before you get on the taxiway to go to 3-4? To buy some of the land from him to put up some more T hangars?
First off, we gotta find out if he wants to sell it.
I mean,
Secondly, we gotta get the money to buy the land if he does want to sell it. And at this point, we don't have the funds to buy that. So Jack, it's a good idea, and it's one that's on our CIP, same as the land on the other side is on the CIP. But it's not really in the plans of executable,
one other comment.
process.
I generally am at the airport almost every day. I have seen a decrease in the number of jets coming in and turboprops. And I know Mr. Everly's gonna talk about it. Well, when we don't have reported weather, the 135 flights can't come in. I know Cherokee County is up now.
Cherokee County is up, but Cherokee County has an approach issue. Circling minimums only and no circling
Yeah.
minimums at night.
Yeah,
So
but
they have their own set of
they've
issues.
got approaches in there now, which they didn't have for 2 months.
Right.
And we need, as pilots, to help the fuel sales to get the airport AWOS, which I'm sure there's gonna be some discussion here, to get it up so we can get the 135 flights in there. It's hard to file into an airport when you don't have one.
Can't go. I understand, I fly 135,
I know.
and I know the pain. Hey, you know what, diverting from Cherokee up to Pickens right now, am I landing north or am I landing south? Heck, I don't know. I got a 10 knot tailwind component. There's often more than 10 knots over there, and I don't know whether I've got acceptable winds or not. I got a plane out right now that's probably not gonna make it back in to Cherokee because of the approach issues.
And one last thing, the Bassies have been out at the airport,
We talked about that already, Jack.
okay?
They're installed, they haven't been flown. FAA has to fly to approve it. We're on the FAA schedule for that. As Mark said, he tried to talk to him directly. There is no accelerating that process.
You don't have microphones and it's a little hard to hear what's going on.
Okay, understood.
May I ask one question? Ms. Alexis, you mentioned tie downs. I don't know if we have any transient tie downs today. So by adding transient tie downs, do you expect to move the list at all? Or they're only transients, we have as many reserved as we are gonna have?
Yeah, so right now we have 3 transit tie downs, so moving those transits over, will open up 3 spots.
Oh, good. Okay, so it
And then a
leads down
4th
on the
spot
list.
right in front of the FBO, which we plan to open, so that'll actually be 4 spots that we can open for tie downs.
Progress. Thank you.
Of course.
All right, anything else, Alexis?
No. I'm sorry, no, okay.
So that
Thank
takes us to
you.
the next one, which is the airport engineer's report, and this will probably be the longest session of the evening, so.
Not really short answers. We'll go, Ann will go first on the fence project, then I'll come back with AWAS and terminal. And if I don't, remind me to touch on those patterns.
Okay.
Okay, so the fence phase 2 plans, those were sent to GDOT beginning of December 2024. We received comments on those from GDOT last week. They give a 2-week window for us to respond to their comments. We were able to return those very quickly, and we got those back to them yesterday. As well as one thing that was requested was the CADEX, which is the categorical exclusion, which is the environmental documentation that is required for each project. So that was executed, and we executed that and sent that into GDOT also for approval. After the plans are approved, then it will go into the grant writing process. The grant will be finalized with the phase 1 and phase 2 in one grant. So that is the update.
So
on the
timeline on that. Please include a timeline on these updates because everybody here wants to know the timeline on these
So
projects.
as just discussed, we sent those in to GDOT in December, and it took them however long to get those back when we got those last week, so that's almost 2 months. It's not going to be bid because we already are going to extend the prices from the phase 1, which was bid. So we will skip that step. We can say, let's say 30 days for approval from GDOT, and then maybe another 30 days for the execution of the grant. The contractor cannot start on day 1 because they have to order materials. And for your protection, we do not allow them to start till all materials are on site. Do not want them to start, then have to stop and pull off. So we want to have everything on site, as well as you cannot start without GDOT notice to proceed. So the construction of this project would probably be fall of 2025.
And it's phase 2, right?
Phase 1 and
Phase 1 and 2 are both being realized together. So we had the phase 1 approved, and GDOT came back with excess money. What's
An
the
offer, yeah.
with an
Supplemental
offer?
budget money because we
Supplemental
were
is the word I was
that.
looking for.
There was state supplemental budget last year. They gave some to aviation that they had to contract very quickly, so we were offered something with a very tight deadline. So they could disperse it, and essentially that was enough to fence the rest of the airport for the most part. And so they need contractually to tie into that first. So like Amanda said, there's really, the only action on your part is executing that document when it comes back. But they'll take the 30 days, then they'll write the contract, then they'll tell us when it's okay for you to sign. Then after that, they sign it after you sign it, so then that takes a period. Then we have to have a pre-construction conference for them to check a box before they can start. Then the contractor will order the materials, And then by the time you do that, there's no action in there like that. We can turn it as quick as possible, but likely you're in the fall. But there isn't anything really disruptive with the project to say like a lighting project would close the runway. There's no runway closures in there or anything like that. And with the fence little area that's around the parking lot and terminal site prep area, that's already done. So there's nothing that's in there that gives you problems during construction. So.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll update continually if it goes quicker than that. That's great, but if not. But that's the pace. So your fencing is not a high priority, believe it or not, for TSA, for general aviation airports, or funding. So that's a fortunate thing to get that, because in one swoop, you'll be done. Other airports, even our plan was, we expect to get it in pieces. So then you build a fence and it stops. And then as long as the deer or the terrorists don't walk around into the fence, you're in good shape, right? So we'll be coherent with the whole thing in place.
Pretty good. Thanks.
So for those on the east side, that's your timeline, is fall of 2025 for that fencing project. Contrary to the comments made, the county has never had the idea of taking that property, to my knowledge. In fact, for us to acquire that property from the owners would stop every other project we have going on, because if we want to keep leasing those hangars over there, the property then has to become compliant with FAA regulations for that area, which would include taxiways and other things there. So from the county side, there's no budget for that. So there is no desire for us to take that property. That's misinformation. With that, there is a path for the owners, and only the owners, to enter into a lease agreement with the airport authority and the county. There is a substantial investment that has to be made to make that work. That's based on the standards of FAA regulations and requirements that come from both GDOT and their representatives who represent the FAA, as well as our engineer. And those are the guidelines that we're gonna operate on.
Yeah.
So there's
Can I add something?
absolutely, please.
Ed's been talking a lot, and Gary made some pretty strong points there. Look, we have been working with Lead Edge, with Mr. Stansel, ourselves, Wendell before he left the board. We feel awful about it. We have done everything in our mind we could possibly think of to find exceptions to these rules. But as the airport's expanding, we have these new requirements. The airport compliance manual is very clear. Mr. Thompson sent in a proposal to us, and we responded that although we didn't say, no, we're not gonna approve a through the fence operation, we did deny that request because it didn't meet any of the FAA or GDOT requirements. If you guys can do that, it's a no-brainer. I don't think anyone would ever say no.
Well, actually, that's not true. I have offered already to meet, and this came directly from the owner.
Gary, we're not gonna.
All those requirements
This is
were
all
agreed,
Mr. Thompson.
and Ed Wood himself said, I don't care what the FAA says, it's not for them to decide.
Okay, so Ed's not all the board. We're all the board, and I'm telling you, we work very hard.
And Gary, you're taking things out of context and out of.
You recorded the conversation, Ed, not me.
So you're taking them out of context.
All right, I'm sorry about that.
That's fine.
But
Anyway,
it is no benefit to us, and we have no use, it serves the airport better if it's available and accessible to the airport. There's no benefit to the county to shut that system down.
Exactly,
just-
especially with the shortage of
But we
hands.
can't
The
risk our
aircraft,
federal funds by violating things we provided to the Thompson family.
hey, we have a bump of 15, 20 aircraft, whatever it is over there, on the register, because those aircraft are not currently, or should not be, on our list of based aircraft today. They're not on airport property.
No,
But we all pay taxes to the county on
Excellent.
our airplanes.
well,
My airplane, according to the county, is domiciled at JZB. And you know it's at
Yes,
Joe's hangar. Obviously, you know that because I subleased it from you
you did.
about
Only for a
7
month or
years ago.
two. You have to turn it over.
But are we in the counts for the airport for grant writing?
No, you're not.
I'd like to see that.
Go search the FAA.
I've tried to get
information
the
is out
official counts for the airplanes at the airport and have not been able to get those. I've been denied those.
by us or by the FAA, because you should be able to get
GDOT
that
and also
by the FAA.
well, yeah, Cody.
Alexa has something to ask you.
The FAA registry can be found online at FAA registry. If your aircraft are counted, if they are on there, just let me know. As I took over, I learned, because I'm new to general aviation, I was always naval aviation. But if your aircraft is on there, I can remove it immediately. As far as I
And
know,
we expect that to be removed, actually. If it's on there, we need to get it off because we need that registry to be clean.
yes.
My airplane's probably on there because I was on the tarmac for several years. Marion offered me a hangar 10 years ago. I was on the list for it and taken off the list, by the way. And I was offered a hangar 10 years ago. Unfortunately, I had 2 homes at the time and couldn't afford the rent on the T hangar. So I was on the tarmac until Ed offered his hangar. And so I've been with, Lloyd and Joey now for 7 years, I guess. And I really don't want to see that operation end.
And I do update it. I update it quarterly, if not more.
Okay.
If there are any issues, I'm only human, if there are any issues, please let me know.
Okay.
But like they said, we're not trying to cut off operations. We love having you guys. As far as taxes, I mean, you have to pay taxes no matter where you're at. Like unfortunately, that's just how it works, so.
The airport
yeah.
don't benefit from that.
Yeah.
You don't care what it is.
But we are well,
benefit from fuel sales and service.
County
but we get that from the
We don't
transit.
benefit from the service. We benefit from the fuel sales. We don't operate a service operation over there for aircraft.
You collect sales tax,
They collect sales tax. The
and they
county
give it to,
collects
they give it to the county, gets,
to the county, not to the
The county.
airport authority.
Alright.
Know the distinction there, so.
So can you, the county even, I'm gonna direct this over to the community over there. Can you provide the service that's provided in the northeast hangars, which is hangars placed for aircraft, such as mine, which is fabric? It needs to be, doesn't need to be tied down on the tarmac, it needs to be protected during the times of non-flight. And I don't know if there's a couple others in there as well, rest of them are metal, but that's a problem. I've been there like 12, 15 years. And this comes up, and I would offer one other thing. There are a number of airports in the country that have through the fence operations. This is,
This airport can have one as well. It just has to meet the same, this airport can have one as well. It has to meet the FAA requirements for that. And those are outlined not by
requirements out
me.
there for us to look at.
Those are not out there designed by me. That's in the handbook.
They're not
The airport
requirements, they're only just suggestions. On the Scottsdale
That's
Airport,
correct.
shut down a road with a traffic light to taxi airplanes across an active, motor, roadway. And there's no reason you couldn't do that. If you want to build T hangars around the horseshoe, there's some flat land, you could provide a taxiway and build your own hangars.
You wanna fund that? Because county does it.
well, but the through the fence has already been funded at no expense to the county whatsoever for 50 years.
With no issues.
At no expense.
So there's,
And according to the
there is a
FAA,
letter out there.
we
that
have
addresses
met
what
the
has to happen
three
if
key
that through the fence is going to happen.
excuse me.
Hey,
We
Gary,
have met the three
Gary,
key
Gary,
requirements.
You and I can get together later. There's no reason to try to be rude and interrupt him. He's the
No,
one
this is
that's
an airport
actually in
thing,
charge of this
Chris.
meeting.
We
So.
don't sell fuel, we don't sell service,
understand.
we don't
Thank
sell
you,
If
access.
you want to remain in the
Thanks, Gary.
meeting, you can calm down and let him finish going through. His public comments were earlier. You and I can get together if you'd like to speak. I'll be more than happy
So
to.
back to the engineers
We
report.
haven't talked in 4 years.
So Pappy's, the flight check folks, we can check in. Josh Havron is one of them. We can check and say, where are we on the schedule? And you have us slotted in. We just spoke to him last week. We spoke to him the month before that. And we're moving forward, but it could still be a month away. Also, you could have cancellations. And then we got a call about Harris County 2 weeks ago that it was probably 6 months in advance of us. They had a cancellation, they wanted to know if they could come in next day. So similar to what Alexa said, we may get no notice, but basically we will have, in the contract for the lighting project, Trinity Electrical perform that. In that contract, they come up for the flight check to make the adjustments, and we'll try to be there as well. The new Pappies are very easy to adjust. And so we would expect to be maybe maybe only 6 weeks away or something like that, but it's a lengthy process with them. And then if they get weathered out, they reschedule all that and bump everything back. So no guarantee, but we work with the gentleman that does that.
Yeah, you gotta have the electrical engineers on site during that. to make
Basically what
adjustments,
they do is then they'll choose a frequency to be on and then deal directly with them, so you're making the they'll fly, say which box to adjust by how much, that gets adjusted, they fly back, and then they'll say that's it, it's good, so.
How close are they to us, Trinity Electric, and how responsive can they be?
They have to be responsive because that's one of the things they do, but they're located in South Georgia, but because the project's big, you go, but they're used to doing that, so.
So if we got the call,
they
they
know
were gonna
it's
do it on
coming.
Thursday,
Yeah.
they could be here to do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so, anyway, so that's Pappy's, and again with Pappy 4, that's a big upgrade. Then on we'll combo the AWAS terminal. Well, I'll say this first. GDOT contract, they're doing an amendment because the original contract they had that had the 5 projects plus the terminal in it, they took the terminal project and spread the $750,000, which was $750 on the first million, 75%. They wrote that contract and they wrote the $750 over the entire project, meaning that they were participating in like 32% of the whole thing. That means none of the other items are eligible for FA money. So that's a disaster. You can have input in them writing that. So we have got them to go back and they've rewritten that contract to put the $750 on the first million. They have sent back a request for an extension of the time for 1 year. We gave verbiage to Chris, he has that, he'll be sending that back. That will go into that contract, and then that contract should be released to us. So in that terminal construction, just for mindset, that $750, so we have to be done with the first $1 million of the terminal in the next year. That makes any sense. That should be no issue, provided that we move past this.
If we go ahead,
Correct.
which we've been waiting on for months.
So now we go back to that. So on the 74, the AWAS is 7460. You have a proposal from the FA person on the AWAS of a solution that they would accept. We have interaction with GDOT, you see the solution, we weren't copied on those emails. That's problematic if we're not copied on stuff. They didn't copy us on those emails, GDOT actually forwarded them to us. We had to remind them last week of the email that they had forwarded us and say, see this line right here, see that solution? We need you to agree with FA's proposed solution to move past the 7460 hang-up, which should never be the analysis of the 7460 height, should never be a hang-up. But it is right now because of some things you guys have seen it in the they did something with the file and confused themselves.
Yeah, they modified your drawing, right?
I'm gonna call it forged. That's the word I'm gonna use. I can't use the word strong enough word on that.
But, go ahead,
Because it's our data sheet, it's a very specific data sheet. And it has our logo on it. If that had been done by anybody other than FAA, we would have sued the you-know-what out of them.
Was GDOT or FAA,
It was
this is really
FAA.
a distinction?
It was FAA.
It was
And the
FAA,
modification wasn't a handwritten, it wasn't a handwritten, which was obviously a handwritten jotted note. Literally, when you look at that document, it looks like we put that on. And what they wrote was, they took our 30-foot tall highest point, it's mostly 14 feet around the side, 30-foot tall highest point, and they wrote on there that it was 50. And now on the AWAS, you have to be 15 feet above with the sensor, not the equipment. Equipment's location's fine. You have to be 15 feet above with that sensor within 500 feet. Now, you've got to be 65 feet tall if something's 50 feet. So, here's where we are now. And we responded after seeing that, and you saw some of that communication. So, they have a proposal of how to get around the 7460 that FA's proposed. We need GDOT to agree to that, because if they agree, the 7460 is done. Now, for the terminal, you need 2 things to happen. It needed only 2 things to happen for several months. You need the 7460 approved. I'm gonna say this, I know we're recorded here, but I'm just gonna say it. They haven't approved the 7460 yet for your terminal site prep project. We have a fuel farm.
Submitted how long ago?
Years.
Yeah.
We have a fuel farm that we just, it was a straight tank replacement in Noonan. That 7460 was probably in for 2 years. The tank came, switched it out. We got a call from Alan Hood with DOT who said, has that been done yet? Yes. Okay, I'll just strike it. I'll just stop it in the process of going, because it's, that's separate from the forge thing. That's that system. That's a challenge. So this is to get around that system and the bureaucracy that's related with two entities, AWAS and 7460 people that have done this. So GDOT, we spoke to Damon a couple of months ago. We spoke to Damon last week, spoke to Damon Friday, we briefed Chris on it Friday. You saw the email that we sent yesterday, which was on Friday, Damon was to respond to us that afternoon or Monday morning. We sent that email, so there's documentation of that conversation. That's not us re-engaging and we've been doing that the whole time. If they agree to it, we're done, other than.
So the
What would
AWAS
happen-
issue is now resolved as far as blocking the terminal building.
You saw
It's not
that
fixed, but
AWAS, the AWAS email, that they gave options. One of them was essentially, so we're gonna have to do this to defeat the bureaucratic system. There was an option where you take it from an AWAS 3 and you turn off the wind sensor basically, and you dumb the AWAS down. Because the wind sensor's not sticking up, the 7460 goes. Do that, 7460 goes, we start the terminal, and then we go back in the system bureaucracy to trick the system. Now we're going back and we're doing an upgrade from the lower AWAS to an AWAS 3, and here's where we want to put a sensor and offer up things, and then they can improve that. So in that AWAS sensor design, yes, and it's,
I'm sorry.
we're doing not laughing about
No,
this.
I'm sorry.
In the AWAS siting criteria, very rigid and actually pretty simple. You have to be 1,000 feet in from each runway end. You have to be 500 to 1,000 feet over. So essentially there's a box created where that thing's gotta be. When you take our box, it doesn't work because we have trees off the airport on each side that encroach a bunch. And then we've got existing hangars in it. It doesn't work. You've gotta go higher. So for those familiar with the Calhoun Airport, in that same window between 500 and 1,000 feet back, you have the beacon tower, and there's the wind sensor on top of it because the beacon's 51 feet tall. And you will find those all over Georgia, all approved by the same exact entity who said they didn't want to see that thing that tall. Well, they still thought it fit in the box. Now they know it doesn't fit in the box, so they're proposing things like, well, you can move it closer to the runway and the front side of
So they're gonna have to make a deviation to the standards, one way or the
That's
other.
it, there you go. And so ultimately, that's why those other ones are like they are. They deviated to keep it in the box but go taller. They may not let us do that, but to get everything else to go, you're gonna dumb the AWAS down, get the stuff to go, and then approach them back. So in their world, it's like you're just asking for that upgrade, and then it'll be reviewed, and wherever we need to stick that wind sensor should be okay. The location of the AWAS equipment is absolutely fine. It is not impacted by anything else, but that's the system.
So Natasha Jones is the person the FAA was dealing with on this for, because she
She's the one
said,
who made the modification.
yeah, she's the one who made the modification. Right.
To the drawing, yeah.
Of your drawing.
Because
And then
Yeah.
she said, while we understand your first choice is to raise the height of the wind sensor before requesting approval for this, it's necessary to exhaust all other options.
that was before she knew it didn't work in her box.
So
In
can
that
we raise
email,
it?
So,
in that
so
email.
Robert, Mark and I walked the airport one day with Alexis and two gentlemen,
Joel, he's
Joel.
a meteorologist with the FAA.
and he's from Minneapolis, he happened to be here. He walked the property and he said, I owe you a report back with stating that here are the three options as I see it to accommodate this. And it's, I don't know if we had that
Let me say
report or
something real
not.
quick. She wrote that
Yes.
and attached these guidelines,
Yeah,
which are the only guidelines to use. That was before she figured out it doesn't work with the guidelines. Later in email, she said, oh, okay, and that's when she starts proposing other things.
So the problem
if
is
you go-
the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing.
What you got, the right hand not knowing what the right hand's doing is what you have. So here's basically, you gotta back away, because when you have a bureaucratic thing like that, you will not get anywhere by pointing out how
That's
dumb
why
that
the
stuff
system
is. So you dumb down, go back, and it blanks the slate, and then it cleanses the palette, and then they can treat it as you are now finding a suitable thing for Winston. And at that point, because now she's aware it doesn't fit in that box, you're dealing with silos in here, so that section of FA, so for her, she doesn't know, frankly, anything about Part 77, and you start to push something that sticks up closer to the runway, there's other groups that get involved that won't allow that, right? So you have, if you look at the end of your T-hangers up by the taxiway, you'll see obstruction lights up there, for example. So we start to push something, there's a reason for that, but as each section of the bureau actually deals with their stuff, they'll make proposals for things that violate criteria of other sections. So bottom line is, she's offered, we're gonna go with that one option she offers in that email.
Okay.
And so, Gina, if you agree with that, then the wind sensor isn't a thing anymore and the 7460 goes, which means two things. Chris responds with that extension, that is the end of that contract. Contract done for terminal, it's already done, this is a rewrite. Then number two is, you've crossed the 7460, we're done, terminal can start. Then, once the terminal started and you got approval from FAA, the DOT and everything to start notice proceed, then we go back and the AWAS will already be functioning because it's just dumbed down, no wind. Then you go back and redo the wind part with that section. And
So
then,
how long before we see those winds back up? What's a potential trajectory for getting that back up?
so
I
this,
know it's a guess.
this, just like you guys, this is so, of all FA criteria stuff and tons of that, this is so simple that you have the box and so now she's already admitting, well, it doesn't fit in the box, so look at these other things. At the point you're doing that, we will come back and go, hey, it doesn't, you've acknowledged it doesn't fit in the box. We're not doing that until the other stuff's going. Because she can do something that shuts that stuff down. We're still waiting on the terminal building. But we'll go back, after the other stuff's gone, go back and say, hey, we've looked at all the box stuff, and yes, we agree that doesn't work. So would you consider go back now? You have a choice. You're either moving it inside, for her, you're either moving it inside 500. Is that more desirable to you? That's really not desirable to other sections of it. Do you prefer that? Or and then we just name all of them. The ones you approved at Calhoun, and at Washington Wilkes, and at Winder, and just down the list, or do you want us to do what you approved at all these other airports?
So apparently Noah's the one that's screaming about the 40-foot height.
All it is this, in the criteria, is you have to be 15 feet taller with the wind sensor than anything within 500 feet, and 10 feet taller than anything within 1,000. When you go to AWASI, whatever you call it, at single runway GA airports, there's physically not space. So we have examples of when those AWASs are installed by DBT in the state contract. They pick, they construct, they do all that. The standard height is 30. However, no airport is gonna go forward over the coming years and never have any hangars built. The AWAS is not meant to hurt economic development. So it goes in with what works then, and then you have to continually go back. You try to do it in one shot where you guess what's the tallest thing that'll be within the distance and get the sensor up, so you got a monkey with it one time. But DOT will not pay in that contract for putting it at a height, and nobody wants to pay for it locally out of the box, to put it at a height that you'll never have to touch it again. The case here is, simple thing would be, you just raise it just like everywhere else. When she steps in and says, no, go back and look at your criteria, because you must not have looked at the criteria. Somebody didn't look at the criteria, but now you have an acknowledgement of her, okay, that doesn't work in the box. So you basically are going to work with the knowledge of that system, get it freed up, dumb the thing down, go back and then put it in. So a goal that I would say is 6 months. But that has to do with taking normal airport, brand new AWAS in that approval process. That has to do with all the equipment. Our equipment doesn't move just the sensor. So that's.
So there's an
that's a
inspection
guess.
process for that to get turned back on.
That's correct. It would be like.
Alexis, you got a comment?
Correct me if I'm wrong, 'cause I'm all wrong pretty often. If we downgrade the AWAS, we not only lose our winds, but we also lose our ceilings, as well as the ability to transmit on ForeFlight or whatever the case is that correct?
Yeah, so here's your choices. It
'Cause we'll
stays
lose
off
more
and you
than-
get nothing, or you dumb it down and have at least something until you can bring it back.
What's the something? What do we lose if we?
Wind, you lose wind.
You lose wind, I know.
Yeah, you lose
What
winds,
beyond
and
wind do
you
you
lose
lose?
the ceiling.
Lose ceiling, lose,
But your choice. Here's your, this is again, because you're dealing with that bureaucracy.
Right.
The part is, well, we don't wanna lose it. It's not on now, and you're not gonna be allowed to turn it back on because you're dealing with folks like that.
Right.
So the choice isn't, we would like it all the way back on right now, and we want that choice. We got forging document people, so your choice is to keep, slugging away with it and don't do your terminal and just let it sit while the clock's running on the money. And the contractor's prices are right, that's not a thing. So your AWAS is gonna have to take temporarily, to disengage and then re-engage, so that resets her and it lets your terminal go forward. And that's not, is that the most, desirable thing? No, but you shouldn't be dealing with people that forge documents, but you are.
But did we look at the option to move the wind sensor to the end of the hangars like was suggested to us by Joel?
The thing is, you just need to decide that you're gonna prioritize working on the AWAS and the terminal will sit as long as it needs to sit. That is not a good idea with the funding that's at risk.
We'll have a conversation, the group here, along with the commissioner, and come back to you with a decision.
Yeah, that's-
We're not gonna have a decision tonight.
Yeah.
It's gonna be part of the conversation.
And so that question that we asked of DOT, do you agree with that option, is just if they say yes, then that's gonna be the deadline, which we hope is just right away. Then say that, they'll agree to do that if you guys do. If not, you're back to just slugging away on the AWAS. Because the agreement that the wind sensor location will change someplace they agree with, then the part is, you're very likely to get from everybody, well, now that we agreed, you go ahead and do it, and when you're done and we've certified it, then we'll approve the 7460. And if that takes months, you'll be, your time on the money. You'll be.
Okay, all right, so AWAS, terminal.
That's, there you go, that's kind of all.
Terminals.
That's it, you're ready to go. There is, we will say this, and aware of it, is whatever goes on with the authority, and we have other locations doing the same thing for the same reasons. Chris did the kind of outline. And some of it has to do with SPOS money and things like that, where it's more advantageous to convert back from an authority, do away with it, and go to more of a financial parent, which is the city or county. So that's a common thing that's happening now. But in that terminal, there are things that are, we've described it passes 3 buckets, and there one is that's bid and it's eligible for money. There's 2 others, which is utilities, and then things like the furniture and if you want to put a new unit on, some of that stuff. So ultimately there, and you referenced it, is we probably need almost like the old, what was you and Wendell, the terminal committee, 2 people run point to insert stuff up, and then his choices can be disseminated to the commissioners or whatever, and then come back with answers that we can execute with on the.
So you're suggesting at some point we need to put a group together?
Yeah, and as it doesn't have to be right now, but as you go through this process, we're aware of other places where, that will likely, their authority will be gone by the time that legislation is through. So it could be April, it could be May, maybe latest June. So just as you're talking about formulating that committee or something, it doesn't have to, it can be commissioners, whoever, but we probably need 2 people that we can share that information as the front line on that, and it can be disseminated and then get answers to that.
Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Anything else on the?
That's all we got.
That's it?
Yeah.
Any other projects that we have on our radar that are on there?
For those who, I know Mark was on that call, Alexis was on the call, Chris was on that call. Damon had a thing about 2 months ago that was, we expected to be a Teams meeting they call, which we expected to be about the contract at 7460, which we, Alexis can vouch for, very aggressive. I mean, what's the deal with the 7460 in the contract? But what they were saying is they wanted to serve up that they had some extra money and they were interested in us doing some paving on that terminal apron. The question for them, so they asked us for one thing they had offered last summer. Chris sent a response back that you would do it. This was to kind of expand that project. They asked us for an engineer's estimate. Our question was, what's the fund? Is it FA money? So it has a 5% share? Is it 75-25? Because we can't do that. What is it? Damon said if we would get him an estimate, this was on a Thursday, if we would get him an estimate the next day, he could have us something on Monday. That's probably 2 months ago, and we have requested continuously, and we've not gotten the answer of what the funding's gonna be. So that's kind of out there in limbo, but again, if it was
Is that the
75.
ramp rehab that you're talking about in front of Garrett's hangar?
It's now two pieces, in front of Garrett's and also in front of the old terminal. And you could look and see where we did the ramp expansion, it's now, you can see the different pavement colors, it's right in front of the terminal, plus what's in front of Garrett's.
That in front of Garrett and David's hangar is beginning to spall a bit. You're seeing some
It's
come off there,
awful,
so.
and it's been awful,
That's
and you
gotta
can
be
look
quite
at, go to Google Earth and you'll see that is from like 1850 and everything else is from newer than that. But you're interested in doing the project, they're on their CIP, but you can't, that's the question to them, and the
Depends on the
was tell us that
fund.
if it's FA money, then it'll be a choice for you guys to make if you can do it. And if it's not, if it's 75-25, it's
Well,
too
we've had
much
that
of a-
project approved a couple of times, and then the bids came back significantly higher than
Not
originally there.
that one, they haven't
We
funded.
didn't?
They haven't funded.
Okay.
You've pushed it, you've had it in there, and so now, it's very likely to get something instead of in the summer with a TA letter. A weird Teams meeting, as winter starts, probably means somebody else dropped the ball on the money, and they know that if we, for what we've done here, you've gotten like $6 million in funding from FA and DOT in the last, 5 years, so that's really good. So for them to look good and get it under contract and catch up to all the other projects in the fiscal year, they know that's a good place to ask. However, we gotta know what the share would be to agree to it. So you have no action on it, we're still waiting to hear back.
Okay. All right, so that's the airport engineer's report. We've already covered the commissioner's report. Old business, I don't think we have anything in old business other than what we've covered in the engineer's report. On the new business side, Hendricks, you sent an email to the group requesting some consideration, if you want to brief us on that.
We printed out, I think, the contents of the email in case you haven't seen them.
I've got a copy of it as well.
Okay.
We circulated it as well, so.
Pretty simple.
Thank you.
The hangar H10 was probably inadequately built with the roof structure, joists and rafters. And on page 2 there, you see they actually started separating and the joists actually separated and disconnected, and that put the worry to me. And we now completed just today a repair for all this, basically with new plates, new structural lumber in certain areas up there. I think it's adequate now to last probably the rest of the life of the hangar. But my outlay on just that part was about $7,000 to get it done. People said, I was kind of shocked it was going to be that much. Then I saw those guys up at the very top nailing these parts on, I realized this is a serious project.
I'm shocked every time we get a project budget, so.
But I think it was the working conditions more than the cost of a few tuba forks. But anyway, it's all been done, and I've put in a request to help me recover some of that cost is for a 5-year lease extension. So I know you got a lot on your plate, and I'm absolutely shocked how much y'all have going on. I should have been here. But I would appreciate that, and I know it's short notice, but when you get back to me, I'll appreciate it.
So Hendricks, we already talked about it among the three of us, and what you're asking for would require policy change, because we do not offer extensions now for upgrades to hangars. And so that would be a policy change. that we're not going to act on until we've changed the structure here. And we'll put that on Commissioner Stansel's shoulders, to be quite honest with you. But the recommendation that we would make, based on our conversations, is that the extension not be granted. And the reason behind that is we don't have it in the system today. Secondly, the repairs that you've done are just that, repairs. And our contracts today for hangars require that maintenance be continued so that that building is in similar condition to when it was built, less wear and tear at the time it's handed over to the county at the end of that lease period. So honestly, what you've done is repairs, not enhancement of the hangar. Yeah, there's a case that I've looked at where down at St. Simon's, they have a policy that allows for extension of leases based on substantial improvements in their property. The FBO was rebuilt down there, a new hotel was built down there, and those were done with that extension contract. So in that case, it is a substantial upgrade to the existing facility, not general maintenance. So I think you got two things working against you from our perspective. One is the policy is not there to allow for an extension, nor is the appetite, I think, at this point. Secondly, you're talking about repairs, not improvements. So.
I have a question. Are all the H hangars timed out at the same time for their current leases?
They are. Those leases were all established at the same time when they were moved. Those hangars were previously at a different position on the airport and without a lease. And part of the agreement for moving those at airport expense was that a lease was put in place on that. That was a 20-year lease. Subsequent to that, after we started with 30-year land leases, we then went back and extended a 5-year extension to all of the tenants who were on that 20-year lease to make it more equitable with that 30-year lease. So that was done in the past. But all those terminate at or about, or actually on the same day as I understand it.
Remember what year it is? How long they have left?
2036.
36?
36. I don't think you, Alexis. I don't remember when it is. So. Iris?
I would just like to say this. One reason we did this was because due to the heavy wind loads and everything on it, we wanted to preserve this hangar for future use by the county once we're no longer occupants. And this brought it up according to engineering profile so that it could be used instead of just leaving it like the FBO building, which was totally useless. So when we leave it, the county can then rent it and receive funds off of what we've done to preserve it. And it's not just a repair, it's a total overhaul. So basically, we were just thinking about its future use, which is, I would say, cheaper than preserving it for integrity and engineering standpoint than it totally collapsing and you have nothing.
The lease that you guys have, I'm not sure of all the terms and conditions in it. I know the original lease that was on all of those properties includes a clause for maintenance, that it must be maintained. So again, back to your point, if you leave it there to fall down, that's not within the terms of that original lease document. So, Greg?
What they had to do to the hangar and board was more than repair and wear and tear, so to speak. I didn't do a full analysis on it, but from a common sense point of view, the hangar it wasn't on the immediate verge of failing unless we had a serious snow load. But one of the trusses had failed, that causes load shift to the next adjoining trusses. Is a good possibility that the hangar was under design from day one, and that this is an enhancement to bring it up to where it can, like I was saying, where it can last a lot longer It's more than simple repair.
Sounds like it wasn't built very well to begin with, I don't disagree.
If you walk in there and look at it, yeah, it looked great, but
I've been in that hangar a lot of times.
I know you have.
And when
And
Ron was in
joints
there,
were starting to fail, and they had to be repaired to get it up to where it can take future loads. But it should have been designed.
I questioned the door on that hangar the first time I walked into it. I still question the door on that hangar.
Don't tell me that, what?
And also that hangar got hit by a Cirrus.
Yes, it did.
No, that
Watch
was
the wall, front wall, when you open and close that door. You got some movement on it. That's my concern.
We did adjust, made some work, because it had
The wall,
Yeah.
they had to put a brace on.
But you know, that has to do with the original build quality. The county didn't design nor build a hangar. That was built by a private individual. And I frankly don't know what the approval process was for that. I can go back to that original lease and tell you what it said. I don't think I have a copy of it with me. Yeah, there. And Exhibit A is actually pretty thin. If you want this copy, I'm happy to give it to you. It's got the dimensions. The only real thing in here that it has is the pitch on the roof, spacing on trusses, lathing, and 4x4 post minimum. So it's actually a very sparse requirement in here. So no doubt it was underbuilt. So.
we would submit that it wasn't a simple repair, it was a major improvement to the system, allowing it to probably last, several more years. But that's, I guess, to speak with you and the board now and that.
Understood, and we will continue to discuss and we'll consider it with the commissioner. But based on what I know today, including our conversation now, our recommendation today would be not to extend that lease. So, thank you. That's the only new business that we had. Anything else, guys? Anything that we've missed or need to talk through? No. Alexis, anything for you?
We're good.
Stacy? Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
All right, with that, we'll call the meeting to a close. It's 8:22. Time to go home. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.